The orchard was never abandoned. People love simple explanations. Bad batch, food contamination, an abandoned orchard. Because the truth is harder to swallow. Some places don't get abandoned, they get left alone. And there's a difference. Welcome to DreadLoop. Every nightmare returns. The orchard was never abandoned. They told the public the infestation came from negligence in old orchard, forgotten by time, producing rotten fruit no one inspected. But Alara Quinn didn't believe in accidents that organized themselves. She worked as a contract investigator for biosecurity cases, mostly boring jobs, contaminated shipments, illegal pesticides, mold outbreaks that spread through cheap housing, the kind of work that taught you one lesson fast. Nature is chaotic. Infestations aren't. Not like this. Not when they appear in clusters that follow transit maps. Not when they surge at the same hour each night. Not when people across different districts report the same dream-tight walls, cracking shells, scratching that never stops. Alara read the hospital incident report the city tried to bury. The pages had missing sections, blacked out paragraphs, redacted footage. But one line remained untouched, likely because the editor didn't understand its weight. Passion woke at 2:03 a.m. repeatedly prior to onset. 2:03. Alara checked other reports. Same time. Always 2:03. That wasn't biology. That was a schedule. So she drove to the orchard, the road that disappeared. The GPS tried to route her 3 different ways, then failed. She took the old road, the one that didn't appear in modern maps. It narrowed into cracked asphalt, and then into dirt. The city noise faded until only her tires and her own breathing remained. At the tree line, her radio cut to static. Then just for a second she heard it. A soft, coordinated sound underneath the static. Not voices, not music. Scratching. She turned the radio off. The sound didn't stop. It was coming from outside. From the orchard. She parked at the gate. The abandoned property sign was rusted, but the gate lock looked new. Someone maintained it. Someone cared enough to keep people out. That alone told her the orchard was never abandoned. It was protected. The trees that looked wrong. Orchards have a certain look-orderly rows, trimmed branches, opened ground between trees. This place did not. The trees were aligned, yes, but their branches leaned inward like ribs. The leaves were too still, no wind moved them. And the apples were perfect. Bright red, unbruised, almost polished. Too many apples for a place left to rot. Alara moved deeper, boot soles crunching over something brittle. She looked down and froze. Eggshell, fragments, thousands of them. Scattered across the ground like pale confetti. She crouched and touched one. It crumbled into powder immediately. Old hatchings. Not days ago. Not weeks. Months. Maybe years. Her flashlight beam swept across tree trunks. She expected moss. She expected fungus. Instead, she saw thin, glossy streaks climbing the bark like residue left by something repeatedly crawling. A trail system. A highway. She swallowed hard. Then she noticed the orchard was silent in the wrong way. No birds. No insects. No life. Only the soft sound of something moving where she couldn't see it. The house in the orchard. At the center of the orchard stood a small maintenance building. Its windows were boarded. Its door hung slightly open. Alara approached and smelled damp wood. Then something else beneath it. A bitter, metallic note, like bruised apple flesh. She pushed the door wider. Inside was darkness, and a heat that didn't match the cool outside air. It felt lived in. On a table sat 3 objects. A notebook, a glass jar with apple seeds, a small battery clock. The clock display read 2:03. It wasn't running. It was set, pinned to a moment like an instruction. Alara's throat tightened. She opened the notebook. The handwriting was careful, old-fashioned, like someone copying scripture. Ober and ober, the same sentence. They only move when the light fails. Another page. The fruit is the door. Another. Do not eat the core. The final page was worse. The orchard doesn't grow apples. IT grows vessels. Ilara stepped back as something scraped softly behind the wall. Not a mouse. Too big. Too slow. Then the scraping stopped, and in the silence, she heard a faint tapping. Not random. A pattern. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Like someone knocking, trying to be answered. The man who shouldn't be there. She spun her light toward the doorway. A man stood there. Older. Weathered. Wearing a maintenance coat with an orchard logo, faded beyond recognition. He didn't look surprised to see her. He looked tired of being right. You shouldn't be here, he said. Hilera steadied her voice. You live here. I watch, he answered. Why is the gate locked? To slow the curious. He glanced at the notebook in her hands. You read the warnings. I read enough, Hilera said. This isn't abandonment. Someone's been keeping this place functional. The man nodded faintly. Because if it dies, they move. Hilera's stomach turned. He didn't answer immediately. He listened. The orchard beyond the walls made a sound so soft, you'd miss it if you weren't afraid. A coordinated rustle, as if leaves were rubbing together without wind. Then, the man said quietly, they're awake. The truth about the apples. His name was Merowat. At least, that's what he told her. He said the orchard used to belong to a private agricultural company. Then the ownership shifted to Shell Corporation's names. That changed every year, as if the orchard had become something no one wanted on record. They discovered them by accident, Maro said. The first nest was inside a shipment crate. They thought it was pests. Then they saw the pattern. Hilera frowned.
Patterner pointed at the trees.
The fruit isn't random. The eggs aren't random. They're placed deep, close to the core, where people don't look. Hilera felt her mouth dry. So, someone is planting this. Moreau didn't deny it. He only said, the orchard makes the fruit, but it doesn't belong to us. A coldness ran down Hilera's spine. What does? Moreau looked upward, toward the thick canopy, the thing the orchard is feeding. Hilera followed his gaze. Between branches, she saw something she couldn't explain. Not an animal. Not a nest. A dark shape that seemed to swallow the light around it like a void threaded between leaves. When she blinked, it was gone. But the air felt heavier afterward. Las 2:03 a.m. They stayed inside the building until dusk, because Morrow refused to travel the orchard at night. After sunset, he said, the orchard changes ownership. Hilera wanted to leave immediately, but the road back felt far. And the orchard gate, she hadn't checked it since arriving. As daylight faded, Hilera noticed something horrifying. The apples began to drop, not randomly. In sequence, a slow, steady patter. 1. Pause. 1. Pause. Like a metronome counting down, Mero sat by the boarded window with a flashlight in his lap, jaw tied. What happens at 2:03? Hilera asked. Mero's voice barely moved. That's when the orchard opens. She tried to laugh, but nothing came out. As the last light disappeared, the scratching began again outside, everywhere at once. Not loud, not frantic. Disciplined. An army moving in the dark. Hilera stared at the clock. Las 12:47 Alto M. The air grew warmer, damp, like the orchard was exhaling. The scratching moved closer, then stopped. Complete silence. Hilera's breathing sounded too loud in the room. La 1:59 Alto M. A faint chittering rose. Almost Las 2:02 Mero turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the door. 2:03. The orchard made a sound like 1,000 shells cracking in unison, and the building's walls shivered, not from wind. From pressure outside, soft pressure like countless bodies pressing closer. Elara backed away from the door. A tiny shape appeared under the crack at the bottom. Then another, then many. Merrow's flashlight beam swept across the floor. The shapes paused in the light, then pulled back into darkness. Elara's heart hammered. "They're scared of light," she whispered. Marosa's expression hardened. "They're not scared of light," he said. "They're learning it." The orchard moves. The scratching shifted, not away, upward. Along the walls, across the ceiling. Elara looked up and saw faint movement in the cracks between boards like shadows crawling just out of sight. Merrow opened a drawer and pulled out a small mirror, held it toward the ceiling. The mirror reflected the flashlight beam. A broader glow spread. The movement stopped immediately. "Mirrors disrupt them," he said. Elara's mind spun. "Why?" "Mado." Swallowed, "Because mirrors don't belong to the orchard. They belong to us. They break the pattern." They pushed the door open and stepped into the night. The orchard's air was thick. The flashlight beam cut through fog that hadn't been there earlier. Elara held the mirror, angling light outward. Where the beam spread, the ground looked clear. Where darkness remained, it looked textured, as if the soil was moving subtly. They walked quickly between rows. At the gate, Elara froze. The lock was intact, but the chain had been rewrapped neater than before. Someone had sealed it. "From the outside," Merrow whispered. "It doesn't want you leaving with what you know." The scratching rose again, closer now around them, between the trees. Elara's hands shook. She lifted the mirror and swept light across the orchard. For a second, the fog thinned, and she saw it. Not individual insects, a connected pattern thin. Dark lines running along the ground and up the trees, like veins, like the orchards had a nervous system, and it was awake. Merrow slammed his shoulder into the gate. Elara helped. The chain snapped. They shoved the gate open and ran down the road. Behind them, the orchard fell silent instantly. Like it didn't need a chase, like it already knew where the road led. Elara's stomach twisted. The city was already reacting, but slowly. Too slowly. She glanced in the rearview mirror. For a second, she thought she saw a red apple resting on the back seat. Perfect. Unbruised. Waiting. When she blinked, it was gone. She did not stop the car. She did not look back again, because she understood the final truth. The orchard wasn't abandoned. It was guarded. It was maintained. And it was feeding something that docent and eat to hunt. Because it spreads through appetite. Welcome to DreadLoop. Every nightmare returns.